Hello, so this is going to be a disclaimer before the actual video starts. This is going to be a very heavily censored version. I did that because I think YouTube keeps disabling comments due to the explicit language, so if you want to see the uncensored version, a link will be provided in the description. So with that out of the way, let's get this over with.
Cuties was awkward, uncomfortable, downright repulsive in many parts, but also poignant, daring, thoughtful, well executed, and dare I say, the best film I've seen in 2020.
I'm going to jail!
2020 has been a shit year, hasn't it? We lost countless celebrities, we just went through another pick your poison scenario for America's presidency, the coronavirus has killed well over 1 million people and continues to terrify the entire planet, and now we have the big one, Netflix Cuties. This has got to be one of the biggest, most universal controversies in the history of anything. It all started on Twitter one fateful day when people were wondering why TVMA was trending and, well, the rest is history. This topic has been talked about pretty much to death by almost everyone you can think of. On Twitter, YouTube, even 4chan of all places. To say this movie pissed people off would be the understatement to end all understatements. And it's really easy to see why. Everything about this movie is wrong. There's simply no other way to say it except it's just wrong. It is the most absolute form of wrong that you can possibly get. And today we're gonna talk about why. And I need to get this out of the way since I know there are f***ers who think I'm just doing this for clout and views. I know there's a lot of people who already talked about this movie, but I really just don't care. I'm making this video because I feel like I have some personal feelings on the subject. Sort of an obligatory need to talk about the crimes this movie is committing, how it's threatening to normalize and the people defending it for whatever reason. How it completely fails in sending the message it's trying to send, and how it's causing more harm than good through the active disregard for the well-being of children. This goes beyond the usual kind of work that I do. Believe me when I say that I have a more personal stake in this whole Cuties fiasco than some people might think. It's gonna be a really, really serious one today, so forgive me if I get a little bit emotional during this video. But yeah, this YouTube channel has been on quite the journey, hasn't it? From My Little Pony, to Samurai Jack, to Ice Age 5, to the Emoji Movie, to Ghostbusters 2016, to the death of Star Wars, to the death of Naughty Dog, to Steven Universe, and now, here I am, talking about the death of Netflix after their decision to promote and endorse and the people actually defending it, and people's human right to like and enjoy it.
I never envisioned my life like this. I don't know how to get out.
There's gonna be a number of sources I'm gonna use for this one, but the one I want to use primarily for the sake of explaining how f***ed up it is to defend this movie, I'm gonna point out to a review from someone that I once respected. I know there's Mr. Girl who desperately needs to get beaten with a baseball bat for actually getting on camera saying all that grotesque stuff and uploading it to YouTube with absolutely zero hint of self-awareness, but I wanted to tackle a video defending this movie that might come across as more obscure. And that review is from none other than Black Critic Guy. You might know him for his reviews on anime, Ice Age 5, Norm of the North, or that one video he made about Wreck-It Ralph, which surprisingly got a lot of traction. And I'll admit I've had a little history with the guy. I watched several of his videos and they were pretty well put together for what he works with. And even though I didn't watch his content religiously, I still respected him as a modest content creator. Keyword being respected. Because now he's known for a little something else on his channel. A little something that makes me question the insanity of our species in a lot of different ways. His recent video regarding Netflix Cuties as not a bad film, but a film that's rather misunderstood and just receiving unjust hate from the public.
You serious?
Believe me, I wish that was the worst of it, but it sadly gets far more disgusting from there.
This may be the hardest review I'll ever make. But it's also the most important review I have to do.
Oh yes, the pivotal moment of your career, coming out of the closet as a enabler.
Cuties was awkward, uncomfortable, downright repulsive in many parts,
Well, at least he got that part right.
but also poignant, daring, thoughtful, well executed, and dare I say, the best film I've seen in 2020.
Okay, let's really look at that statement for a moment. Poignant. Oh yes, this is the movie that invokes a keen sense of emotion from you. A movie that goes out of its way to children. It should be put on a wall alongside The Green Mile, Up, and Toy Story 3 as some of the greatest emotional roller coasters of our time. Daring. Okay, anyone who thinks this movie is bold in any way needs to be put on a list and investigated. The only thing bold about this movie is that it's a fancy way of saying what if the kids gave and seeing how long it can get away with that without getting blasted by everyone. Which, spoiler alert, wasn't that long. Thoughtful. Thoughtful how? Because it's trying to raise awareness by glorifying the very thing it's trying to send a message on, while children in the process? That's like saying that it's thoughtful to raise awareness on pollution by dumping acid into the ocean. Maybe it was thoughtful of the getting off on it, but that's about it. Well executed. Now, this is one we're gonna go over later, but for now, I think that description of the movie getting unjust hate pretty much speaks for itself. And of course,
The best film I've seen in 2020.
the best movie you've seen in 2020. Out of all the picks you could have gone with, this is your one. Dude, if you honestly think that this is the best film of 2020, you haven't been watching enough movies. And don't fucking use quarantine as an excuse. I haven't been to any theater since this whole thing started, and I found ways to watch movies from home. For example, I actually watched the live-action Mulan on a Fire Stick with my dad, even though I really didn't want to. Though I suppose the upside to it was watching it on a Fire Stick instead of using Disney Plus, so we didn't have to give any money to that garbage fire of a film. I also really love the way he uses this clip to insinuate how brave he's supposedly being for going against what's considered the popular opinion. You know, that horribly dated in-joke that reviewers or people on Twitter use to show that they don't respect their audience or followers. Like it's so controversial to say a film's children isn't so abhorrent or wrong.
Yes, I honestly mean that. I understand you'll have a knee-jerk reaction to such a bold statement.
Oh yeah, it's as bold of a statement as the ones used by on Twitter actually speaking in defense of this grotesque schlock.
I get the backlash towards the film and why it rubs people the wrong way.
I don't know. Considering the train crash we're about to witness, I don't think you have the slightest clue as to why this movie is so hated.
It rubbed me the wrong way when I first saw the poster too. I mean, a film about a bunch of 11-year-olds dressed provocatively and dancing. What adult in their right mind wouldn't be appalled by such a premise?
Apparently you.
And if that was the case, then everyone is right to hate Cuties. But it isn't. And therein lies the biggest problem with this backlash. It's based on a lie.
Based on a lie? How the was it a lie? The poster was depicting an actual scene from the movie. The fact that you had to censor visual footage of this film in order to monetize this review is physical evidence that goes against your statement. Seriously, do you not know that there's something wrong with the footage if you have to block it? It's not a matter of those elements being present, it's that the movie revolves entirely around this stuff. It's literally the main part of the film and the focus of the premise. The actual lie is how this is supposed to be a coming-of-age story, because I've literally never heard of a coming-of-age story about close-ups of kids making them dress up in clothes while dancing.
So instead of doing a regular review condemning people for hating the movie without seeing it, or being an out-of-touch critic that scoffs at the mainstream audience for just not getting it, I want to level with you guys. I want to show you another way to look at Cuties, to approach it differently.
You mean besides meeting it with immediate disgust and vile, which is the appropriate reaction to have to something like this?
So, If you'll indulge me for a couple minutes or quite a few minutes, I'd like to break down the true intent with Cuties.
Oh yeah, he's one of those people. Sure, this film children in disgusting law-violating ways, but it was with good intentions, to send a message and raise awareness about an issue currently plaguing our society. That's a load of f***ed up we're gonna get into later, although I find it both hilarious and sad that the same guy who's known for mercilessly beating down anime is about to go into a pretentious 14.5-minute speech on why he believes this was justified in kids. I mean, good on him for properly representing Twitter at least.
The backlash towards Cuties is entirely Netflix's fault and no one else's. It was terribly and poorly marketed.
Oh, and he's also one of those people. You see, it's not the movie's fault for being gross and Netflix just promoted it wrong. Hey genius, maybe this is too complex for your tiny brain to understand, but the advertising, regardless if it was good or bad, does not change the content within the film. It doesn't change what it actually is. It's still about children being
It's almost exactly like what happened to the film Drive 9 years ago.
Okay, at what point did the movie Drive or any of its marketing feature children getting And even if that's the comparison you want to go with, it's a shitty comparison. The trailers for Drive misrepresented the premise of the film and spoiled the majority of what happened in it. Cuties doesn't do that. It shows how the movie is about a girl joining a dance group, and that's the entire vocal point of the premise. And as much as I wish it were the case, it didn't spoil the entire plot. It keeps the majority of the events out of the picture, and keeps the really special stuff hidden before the film's release.
The marketing team, or even the studio itself, created a trailer that paints the film in a certain way to appeal to a wide audience.
A wide audience? You mean the and that this was clearly made for?
With Drive, they made it seem like a high-octane action thriller, when in actuality, it's a slow-burn, introspective drama thriller with some action. And here with Cuties, they made it seem like a quirky, upbeat drama about 5 quote-unquote friends that dance their way to fame, and the poster they released with the film only further supports this notion.
Look, at this point, it doesn't f***ing matter how Netflix approached it, and it doesn't matter how it was publicized. This became the second the marketing material portrayed it as such. The poster, the trailer, the plot synopsis, and the clips that surfaced on Twitter and elsewhere a day after the movie was released on Netflix, it all shows how it was even more gross and horrifying than the marketing initially suggested.
It's nothing like that. Not even close. So I understand how people could perceive the film to be about and children. But let me tell you what the film is actually about.
It doesn't matter what the film is actually about. It still features dancing with a camera crew exploiting that fact. Are you just blind and deaf? Because there is no other reason for you to miss that.
Cuties is a coming-of-age story.
Okay, shut the f*** up. Anyone who thinks this is a coming-of-age story needs to have their hard drive confiscated. Seriously? Coming of age? A film that features of children? How is that even coming of age in the slightest? Stand By Me is a coming of age story. This isn't. If you want to do a coming of age story, that's fine. More power to ya. But make the story about something that isn't grotesque. Make it about sports, or boxing, or being a singer, or maybe even being a ballerina, but not f***ing twing. The girls are 11 years old and the age of in France is 15. This shit isn't even allowed in the country it was made in.
So yes, while the over is in the film, it 1 is not the main focus of the film. That would be Amy. And 2, it has a bigger, deeper point to the story.
Alright, so your argument is that it's okay for these children to be because it only happens in a few scenes, and the message of the movie is supposed to be against that, ignoring the fact that children were actually to make it. Dude, it doesn't matter how many scenes have this stuff. It doesn't change the fact that these children were actually abused. Also, you literally just admitted that there is in fact of kids. You see, this is the moment where you should have stopped what you were doing. The second you actually said that while recording the script was when you should have stopped for a second and think to yourself, wait a minute.
That being...
And here comes the excuse that it's all just social commentary. F*** off with that shit, bro. You do not need close-ups of children's to send a message. There's already all sorts of movies with this kind of message which are better written and didn't a single minor to get the message across.
Whether you agree with this point or think it's an excuse or a way to defend the film from any criticism, the fact is the film is clearly a commentary on how society is today in two major ways that are actually connected. The over of adolescence is the obvious one, but the not so obvious one is the state of parenting.
Alright, well that might not have been a problem except for the part about forming a dance team when they're not even out of middle school yet. Who in their right mind would actually want to see that? Even unironically. It's and not only is it happening in universe, it's happening in the meta sense. The kids were directed by adults to do all this gross stuff while they focused on explicit parts of and who in their right mind would actually use that to send a message? I'm not saying this hasn't happened before and something that shouldn't happen at all, given the existence of garbage like dance moms and... just... But why do we need to get that across? We don't need to get that across.
Parents should teach their kids what is appropriate and what is not. It's not the media's job to raise your kids, so stop letting them and be more involved in your kids' lives. To me, this is the biggest takeaway from Cuties. We need to be better parents for our kids.
No shit, Sherlock? I'm pretty sure that people with enough moral value to avoid this film at all cost are already aware of the importance of being a good parent to their kids. In fact, the people actually defending and supporting this film are setting a very bad example to kids and proving that they should not have any, or custody of them. Family Guy, back when it was good, had already taught a lesson about not letting media raise your kids. And I gotta say that it's pretty bad when Family Guy of all fucking things is better at teaching a life lesson to the audience than you are.
Like, for instance, if you're watching a TV show and you decide to take your values from that, you're an idiot. Maybe you should take responsibility for what values your kids are getting. Maybe you shouldn't be letting your kids watch certain shows in the first place if you have such a big problem with them, instead of blaming the shows themselves. Yeah.
They got the message across in a shorter amount of time, in a much more entertaining way, and they managed to do all of that without a single minor in the process. So what's this movie's excuse?
The over-sexualization of teens and adolescents is also a very cogent point the film makes.
Are you seriously telling me you're one of those but my themes idiots who gets easily distracted by the theme of a story being told to you while completely ignoring how that story is actually written and the actual storytelling quality? You're telling us that it's okay for a movie to kids to accomplish that? You think the parents who allowed their daughters to star in this are good parents? If you honestly believe that, I hope to God you plan on staying single or not adopting any kids, because you are not qualified to be a parent on any front.
And I personally find it weird that everyone is all up in arms and angry about a film that addresses the issue honestly.
No, it does not.
Rather than the issue itself. It's a very kill the messenger scenario. People are directing their anger in the wrong place. They shouldn't be directing it towards Cuties. It should be towards those who actually teens for ratings.
You mean like the who directed this trash? And really? That's what you think we're doing now by protesting this? We're killing the messenger? A woman telling girls to and across their and show off their to adults filming them is the messenger in this situation. If that's the argument you want to go with, this is a messenger that deserves to be stoned because she literally children in the process of sending her message. How do you not get this?
And yes, I won't deny it was very uncomfortable watching these little girls and talking about. But you know what? Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable.
The truth does not have to kids. It does not have to break the law. And I also find it really funny that you bring up the excuse that it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, because that's exactly what the fucking poster did. You know, the same poster that you said was just a result of Netflix bad advertising and misrepresenting the movie, and now you're making the excuse that the of these kids is intended to make you feel uncomfortable, despite that you literally admitted to being disgusted by the initial poster for doing the exact same thing.
It rubbed me the wrong way when I first saw the poster too. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable.
Are you really just that stupid?
Because there are kids in real life that act this way. I've met a few. What Cuties is a reflection of the real world and its unsettling truths.
And that makes it okay for this movie to children. Why? Don't give me that it happens in real life shit. Nothing excuses what this woman did to these girls. Them in front of grown adults, filming them doing things, and then allowing that footage to be transmitted worldwide.
And to set the record straight, this film does not, I repeat, does not glorify, nor condone, nor approve of the over and behavior of the cutie girls portrayed in the film.
Okay, that's definitely a fucking lie. You don't think this movie is glorifying the of children? You don't think there are finding out about this movie and getting a Netflix subscription specifically to look this movie up and Swipe, you've been censoring footage of this movie throughout the entire review. You have to know something about this isn't right. In fact, you know what? Let's go over something I found while preparing myself for this nightmare-inducing response. This right here is the IMDb parental guidance list for some, gotta keep that in mind, some, of the horrifying things that these minors are subjected to in the making of this movie. Let's take a look, shall we? Ahem. One of the 11-year-old girls trying to seduce her adult cousin, taking a picture of her and uploading it from the phone she stole. Her pants are pulled down, revealing her underpants. They dance in front of a security guard to get into a laser tag. They're watching explicit videos in which one of the girls lifts her shirt, revealing her bare breast. Multiple instances of dancing as the camera pans and zooms in on their and midsections, and finally, one of the girls finds a used condom, blows it up, and puts it under her shirt pretending it's her breast.
Fuck that! Fuck that shit! I'm out!
Yeah, you heard right. There is a scene where one of the 11-year-old girls blows into a condom like it's a fucking balloon, stuffs it into her shirt pretending that it's one of her boobs, and this guy said that it's the best movie he saw in 2020 despite that. Now, I could probably end the video here and I'm sure nobody would be mad at my decision, as this is enough proof of how fucking repulsive this man is for actually defending this movie, but I guess I'm in the mood to torture myself a little bit more, so let's continue.
If anything, the film deliberately goes out of its way to paint the cutie girls in the worst way imaginable. The girls are rude, disgusting, disrespectful, selfish, vain, and self-centered. They treat their friendships as if they were just another accessory for them to hold or wear at any given day. One day, they might be friends with you. The next day, they might not give a damn about you. And then the next day, they might actually care about you again. They use their friendships as a way to gain something. They use each other as a means to get something that they want, to achieve some type of goal, not to actually form a genuine connection.
So you're saying the characters we're supposed to root for are unlikable little shits? Doesn't this go against the film's intention of getting us to sympathize with them because they're in this situation due to bad parenting? Also, doesn't this just sound like one of those really cliche stories about a girl trying to fit into a social clique just with kids twerking? Because you do realize you can watch a cliche story about a girl trying to fit into a social clique without kids twerking. The nice girl going down a bad path, making bad decisions but learning from it and trying to be better from those experiences story has been done before. And again, it's been done before without the need to kids.
Not to mention the most glaring evidence of how they're not portrayed in the most favorable light, the negative impact they had on Amy as a character, who begins the film rather wholesome, maybe a little naive, but a good person. But the moment she starts spending more time with the cutie girls and getting assimilated into their ways, you start to see how she's changing for the worse.
Are you sure about that? Because I looked up the synopsis of the plot as well as other people's review of the film, and it seems more like a lot of Amy's bad behavior as a result of her own decision making. If the argument is that these characters are meant to be disliked, that holds as much water as the stuff being meant to make you feel uncomfortable, because none of it is executed in a good way.
She has a bad attitude. She's not taking care of her brother. She doesn't help her mother when she falls down on the ground, clearly exhausted or sick. She just scoffs and is like, whatever, I don't care about you. Or the fact that she stabs a kid in class. and pushes a girl into the river and watches her drown, not even helping her.
Okay, what does the dance group have to do with any of that stuff? Seriously, why would Amy not help her mother who's fallen on the floor from a blackout just because of the dance crew? And Amy stabbing that kid with a pencil, pushing someone into the river and watching them drown? That's all on her, not because the other girls are being a bad influence. They had nothing to do with that stuff. If anything, that just makes Amy a horrible sociopath, which also supports how a lot of her bad behavior is her own choice.
And that clearly shows you right there that the cutie girls are not role models. These are not girls you need to look up to. These are not girls you need to ever associate yourself with.
Well, even if it's true that the cuties are being a bad influence on her, why is that an acceptable explanation for Amy's actions? See, it wasn't her fault, it was the other girls. They were being a bad influence on her. Okay, so if I came across a gang, and they started having a bad influence on me, and I end up going out and killing someone, are you gonna blame the gang for being a bad influence on me? No, you're gonna blame me if you have the right sense. Heck, if anything, you pretty much are sounding like one of those people who would blame social media and celebrities for the influence on kids. You know, the thing you said you were not doing earlier in the video?
Do not get it twisted, ladies and gentlemen. I am not saying blame celebrities or social media or movies and video games for influencing our kids. Not to mention the most glaring evidence of how they're not portrayed in the most favorable light, the negative impact they had on Amy as a character.
What is this, a poorly thought out game of opposite day to you?
So to the people who are claiming that this film is glorifying such behavior, I politely disagree, and here is my evidence to that point.
Did he really f***ing say that while playing a clip from the grotesque final dance number?
Cuties is also a brilliant deconstruction of the coming-of-age story we've seen in a lot of films.
Oh yes, I can see it now. The bastion of movies that miraculously presented the coming-of-age formula in a revolutionary way. The Lion King, Stand By Me, Boyhood, The Breakfast Club, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, 16 Candles, and f***ing Cuties. Jesus Christ.
Imagine it, if you will, as a visual novel. It has good routes and bad routes. And it really dawned on me that most of the coming-of-age stories that I have seen in theaters or that I've read or learned about, they tend to be overly positive.
Maybe because none of them children?
A kid meets the right group of people or chooses the right path and becomes a better person by the end. Cuties, on the other hand, is a case of taking the bad route.
Okay, so you wanna say this movie does the opposite of what you'd expect a coming-of-age story to be like. Well, there's one thing wrong with that. A few seconds ago, you titled this section as Coming of Deconstruction. But in order for that to work, it has to be properly deconstructed. What part of deconstruction requires children being by adults filming them doing that sickening stuff? The lost seasons of Bill Cosby?
Where bad parenting leads to awful influences, which leads to terrible decisions.
You do know that Amy just being a horrible piece of shit plays as a factor in this, right? The parents didn't make her stab someone, push someone in a river while watching them drown, or do any of the stuff featured in the movie. That was all Amy. Nothing that happens in her home life is a good enough reason for any of her behavior in this movie. That's not a result of bad parenting. That's just Amy being a horrible, messed up piece of shit. You even said it yourself. She's not being oppressed by her family, she just got bored and decided to do all this shit. Seriously, she literally just stares at the girl she pushed into the water as she flails around desperately trying to grab onto something, almost drowning. She just stares at her with a blank expression. And instead of coming to the horrifying realization that she could have killed someone, she just walks away. This is the protagonist we're supposed to sympathize with by the end of the movie? There's nothing sympathetic about her. She's practically demented.
So now that I've broken down the true intent of Cuties, let me discuss why I think it's an overall great film.
You mean you already did that? Because I'm still waiting for that part, where you give a justified reason for this movie to kids because it's supposed to be against that. Then again, I might as well give up on that because a justified reason for this movie to kids does not exist.
Is this meant to be humorous?
It should go without saying since I've already spent a majority of this video praising it, but the film's biggest strength is the writing. I found the storytelling refreshing and daring, the characters complex and genuine, and the themes and commentary honest, bold, and well executed.
And I'm happy to report that this piece of shit is lying because Cuties is literally none of those things. And I promise we're gonna get to that later.
For a first-time director and writer, Maimuna Dakure's direction was masterful.
You mean the way she directed those kids to for the looking this movie up? Well, in that case, she did her job excellently.
Getting exactly what she needed from her actresses.
Yeah, she got exactly what she needed to please people like Mr. Girl.
And speaking of the actresses, each of them gave solid performances. I was particularly surprised at how well the child actresses were. They pulled off cringy characters without themselves being cringy, which is tougher than you think.
I don't know, watching what those kids were directed to do was really fucking painful.
I especially love Fathia Yusuf's performance as Amy. She had the toughest role to pull off, being both sympathetic yet despicable while carrying this film, and she pulled it off like a pro.
Despicable? Yes. Sympathetic? No. Wait a minute, the section is already over? That was the excellence of Cuties, some things about the director, the kid actors, and that's it. You didn't even delve into the details regarding the actual writing and storytelling and why you thought it was good enough to justify these kids being I mean, I knew you were gonna do a piss poor job on that front, but damn, I didn't think you wouldn't even try.
I think my brother put it best when I talked to him about this film when he said that despite all that the film portrayed and showed, it is clearly a work of art.
Then your brother is just as f***ed up, brain dead, and creepy as you are.
We've gone so accustomed to the average movie-going experience. Films that don't truly surprise us, they thrill us, they entertain us. But we normally get a knee-jerk reaction to films that challenge us, films that are quite unique and different or go against the grain.
Well, if I had to choose between average and grotesque, I'd pick average every day of the week. The only thing challenging about this movie is how much you can get away with defending and enjoying it without getting put on a watch list, and f*** you for saying that unironically. Oh, and that's what it is now? A knee-jerk reaction to children getting by adults? F*** you times 2 for saying that unironically.
Or say something about our society that we're not willing to embrace or accept at the time. And when a film can make you question many things and have an onslaught of different opinions, emotions, and feelings, that in its essence is a work of art.
Stop making this look like a misunderstood work of art, motherfucker. We all know that if a white man made this instead of a black woman, he would be facing criminal charges and thrown in jail on release day. The only question this movie raises is how people like you are actually defending and enjoying it, let alone think it's great. This is not art. This is You have to be actually brain dead to miss that.
Because works of art are supposed to bring things like that out of people. They're supposed to make them question what they just witnessed. Make them ponder over and over about how the film, how the work made them feel. And that's what Cuties did to me. It made me ask a lot of questions. It made me feel a variety of emotions. But at the end of the day, I can't deny that it did something very unique. Something I don't see mostly. It challenged my perspective on certain things, and I actually appreciated the experience that Cuties gave me. I may not watch it religiously. It may not be my favorite film to watch over and over again. Clearly not. But I won't forget the experience it gave me, the lessons it taught me.
Okay, are you just on Netflix's payroll or something? Did they promise you a lifetime subscription if you gave this movie a positive review instead of being repulsed and disgusted by its very existence? You cannot tell me, you f***ing moron, that you think this movie is better than Kung Fu Panda 3.
Whether you agree with that notion or not, the one thing I do want you to take away from this video is that I feel as though the hate for Cuties was completely unwarranted, and it's the classic example of judging a book by its cover.
I thought you said you understood the hate this movie was getting.
And frankly, I don't blame you. I get the backlash towards the film and why it rubs people the wrong way.
And on that note, f*** you The hate for this movie is completely deserved for what was done to these children.
People immediately condemn the movie without giving it a chance to tell its story and to be judged objectively and fairly.
Oh, so now you're saying that it was bad that people have been hating it without even seeing it. Okay, let's really think about that excuse for a moment and what it actually means. Now yes, in a lot of cases it is important that you experience a sizable amount of the content of a piece of media before having the right to talk about it. I had to marathon every episode of Steven Universe before I did my big video on it. And while I didn't play The Last of Us Part 2 directly, because I don't support a product that has absolutely zero respect for its customers, the purpose of that review was to talk about its narrative, why its storytelling was insulting to people who cared about the story of the first game. And I didn't simply watch a selection of cutscenes before making that video, I watched the entire story on YouTube. Every single cutscene. I had to watch over 10 hours of content to dissect and deconstruct in order to objectively judge it as a horrible story that's a giant middle finger and a massive fuck you from Neil Druckmann. So yes, the you can't judge something without watching it argument does hold water in a lot of circumstances. However, it doesn't work with this movie in particular for one very obvious reason. It's fucking It is actually a movie made for I'm not going to indulge this blatant if I already know that it's going to disgust me. I do not want to watch this movie. Ever. I don't give a fuck if someone pays me $1 million to watch it. Hell, I don't even care if someone holds me at gunpoint to watch it. Because I am not going to subject myself to an hour and a half of grotesque and you shouldn't have to either. In the same way you don't have to eat out of an unflushed toilet to know it's going to taste vile, you don't have to watch Netflix Cuties to know that it's going to be a vile experience. I was actually unfortunate enough to see the final dance scene on Twitter because someone uploaded it there, and that was more than enough for me to say no to this goddamn abomination. I saw kids getting and that was all that my brain needed to say no. And it was also all that I needed to know that no matter what excuse you come up with, no matter what defense you make for the case of this movie, this is something that cannot be defended. Being shown just mere seconds of that disgusting dance scene is enough to understand the problem. You do not oppose by doing the exact same thing with that kind of grotesque cinematography. I can't believe I keep seeing people actually saying you have to watch this depraved movie to actually get it and accurately judge it. They are literally saying you can't judge the grotesque until you first indulge the grotesque. I mean, look at these people. They are literally trying to moralize me because I don't want to watch. I should not have to watch to make the decision that it's bad. If you seriously have to resort to saying you didn't watch the movie to invalidate anything I have to say about it, it actually says a lot more about you than it does about me. And the funny thing about some of these people trying to invalidate my judgment on this movie by using the you didn't watch it excuse, they haven't watched it either. And yet they insist that they know better than me when it comes to discussing how depraved and revolting it is. Let me tell you, whenever someone says you didn't watch this movie or you're supposed to watch it before judging it, or ask did you actually watch the movie, what they're really saying is to grab some tissue and lotion and try it out for yourself. If you seriously believe that I or anyone else hating this movie needs to see an actual in order to determine that it's bad, you are fucking stupid. Like, you are actually fucking stupid. Oh, also, this guy is saying that I'm being prejudiced because I won't watch the movie because of that one clip of the final dance scene I saw on Twitter. He actually thinks that not wanting to watch a movie featuring is a form of prejudice. An actual human being wrote that. Just let that sink in for a minute.
But I hope that after seeing this video, people can see what the filmmaker's intent was, watch the film, and then judge it on its own merits. And if you still don't want to see it because of the of the children, then I completely understand that.
But you literally just mentioned how that was a bad thing. And hello, you are literally admitting that there is in this movie. That's like the second time you did that.
Just so long as you can understand why I think it's great.
Fuck you. You did nothing to support the belief that this Epstein movie is great.
To sum it all up, Cuties is a superb film that takes an honest, hard look at our society, from the internet culture that is influencing our children to the degradation of parenting.
If this is what your idea of honesty is, you are in serious need of a lobotomy.
It's supported by solid direction,
I mean, if you're a I could understand why you thought the directing was solid.
stellar, raw performances, and strong writing. And while I wouldn't call it an epic masterpiece, I will say it's definitely one hell of a film.
Okay, if you really insist that this movie had strong writing, then let's take a look at that. Let's take a moment to talk about the actual writing and storytelling quality of Cuties. And I know what you're thinking. How can I say anything about the storytelling if I didn't see it? Easy. I watched other people's review of it. And before anyone tries to pull any bullshit like, oh, you're basing your thoughts on the movie from someone else's review, that doesn't count. Yeah, like that's really gonna make me wanna watch a movie about kids being Now, while it's true that I haven't seen the movie, I did see numerous testimonies by people who have. People who they themselves were extremely uncomfortable while watching it. These were people who were very uncomfortable with the prospect of watching the film, but did it anyway to alert the public, to warn them to not see it because it's even worse than the trailer and poster suggested. And aside from these reviews having more detail on the story than Black Critic Guy, these reviews are from highly substantiated accounts from people who actually made the decision to sit down and watch a movie that millions of others were really disgusted at the prospect of even thinking about doing. So I have no reason to believe that anything they're saying are lies or misrepresenting events of the film or the subject matter contained in it. So let's get down to it. Firstly, Amy herself. Now, I can understand having a flawed main character that does things that can make you dislike them. It's possible for it to work if you don't make them cross the moral event horizon and give them a proper redemption, where they go through real trials and tribulations to improve themselves. The problem is that none of this is done with Amy throughout the entire film. It's not enough to just say, oh, her parents aren't spending time with her, or she's being influenced by a bad crowd, because that's not enough to make us root for her. Making a likable or well-written protagonist requires a lot more than that. You need to give the character something to gravitate to in order for the audience to relate to them. All we know about Amy is that she's bored of her family's traditions and seeks attention from other people. And throughout the movie, they don't give her any positive traits to make us want to be on her side. Just one scene of her crying while listening to her mom frustrated with her husband getting a second wife is extremely bare bones. We're supposed to sympathize with her, but she's so trashy and scummy throughout the movie. Even with the environment she's placed in, you don't sympathize with her because she's just mean and nasty for the sake of being mean and nasty. Stabbing a classmate, not helping her mother collapsing from stress, pushing a girl into the river and just watching her drown, ignoring her brother, threatening to accuse a security guard of harassment, posting her on social media. These were all things that Amy did of her own volition. She only cares about what she wants and never really thinks about the consequences of her actions. She's practically empathetic to the fact she almost drowned someone and just watched it happen with a blank stare while not doing anything to help her. Half the time her bad behavior is just done for the sake of being there and serves no purpose in the story or character development. What was the point of her to her cousin and then fighting him to steal the phone from his hand? What was the point of her stabbing her classmate? To make her look more terrible? To symbolize her downward spiral? They're just there to be gross and make Abby more unlikable. And to top it all off, she faces I repeat, no consequences for any of her actions in the entire movie. There's no repercussions whatsoever and she just gets off scot-free. No one reports her post. She's not investigated for making said post. She's not shown facing consequences at her school. The cousin whose phone she stole completely disappears from the plot. They don't show the aftermath of her decision to dance the way she did or how she was dressed in front of a public crowd. She doesn't even get any therapy for all the messed up stuff that she went through. She's constantly doing horrible things and only has the epiphany in the middle of the final dance scene completely out of nowhere. And the way the movie gives her a good ending in such a rushed way after she nearly killed someone, on top of all the other bad stuff she did, is horrible writing. She shouldn't just be allowed to join in on that jump rope game at the end. She should have been excluded and outcasted by her fellow classmates at school. Amy is just not a good character at all. She's not sympathetic and there's no depth to her in the slightest. She's a terrible person and she's just horribly written. And the other girls, what is there even to say about them? They're rude, spoiled, and ill-mannered brats with literally no personality. They exist specifically as plot devices to serve Amy's regression into bad behavior. They're not actual characters in the story, which makes their presence completely phoned in. And the argument of this being a coming-of-age story, that's complete bullshit. I think it really goes to show how depraved the people defending this film are when they can't tell the difference between coming-of-age and But you know what? I'll play by your rules for a minute. Let's forget about the stuff and try to look at this coming-of-age story without the law-breaking stuff in mind. It still doesn't work. Firstly, the subject matter they use to tell this coming-of-age story is completely inappropriate for what they're trying to convey. It's one thing to have it be about a family member defying their family's traditional values, but why are you using and dancing to deliver that story? Those two things have nothing in common. You couldn't make it about participating in sports or wanting to be a singer, and aside from the material just not fitting this type of story at all, it still doesn't work because the flow of the story, how it's paced, and the way it's written are so painfully contrived. So many plot threads are left completely unresolved, and it doesn't consider the long-term consequences of Amy's actions. Isn't the fact that she posted her on social media something that's going to follow her for the rest of her life? We never find out because it just ends out of the blue. It mostly goes from scene to scene, hand-waving a lot of stuff out of the movie, and it doesn't properly represent Amy's downward spiral, which weakens the message it's trying to send. And the reason for that is because Meinmona Dokue wasn't focused on developing key elements of the story. She only wanted to focus on the theme of kids in our society being and just make the film bend around that. And it results in everything that makes a story badly written. Bad pacing, underdeveloped characters, and its theme being horribly mishandled. For starters, it's very badly rushed. A lot of major events feel like they happen on speed to get to the next scene as soon as possible, which results in no proper build-up or development for anything that happens. Characters have virtually no depth, there's no balance to how it's paced, and a lot of things that happen don't even make sense in hindsight. In one scene, the other girls throw rocks at Amy and she still decides to hang out with them. Why would she hang out with them after they attacked her? And the realization that Amy has in the middle of the final dance scene comes completely out of nowhere with no proper build-up. She just randomly comes to the conclusion that it's bad and randomly decides, I don't choose to be a slut or my family's traditions and just want to be a normal girl. She doesn't organically learn anything, and the film doesn't take the time to actually reflect on everything she's been through. There's no actual resolution to anything that happens, so it just comes across as a big waste of time. She learns nothing other than being a slut is bad and doesn't really think about anything she did. It doesn't create the notion that Amy actually grew from these experiences, and it's made even worse by how her actions have no ramifications. Nothing leads to the audience having a deeper understanding of who she is, and it never goes anywhere with her experiences while not learning from the mistakes she made along the way. There were no consequences or moral teachings. It makes the visual symbolism at the end completely fall flat because it's not supported by any strong writing. So aside from just being objectively disgusting from every single angle, it's not even a good movie. The story is convoluted and badly paced, the characters are unlikable, the protagonist is loathsome, it horribly mishandles its themes, and there's no consequences for anything that happens. It's amateurish, disjointed, and completely lazy on top of just being gross and immoral. It's incredibly sloppy in how it expects you to not pay attention to certain things, and just accept whatever incohesive writing it throws in your face. It's like the Star Wars sequel trilogy that way. Only here they had the indecency to throw in a bunch of law-breaking content to go with the incoherent storytelling. It's the most obvious setup for the main character falling into the wrong crowd story you can imagine, so it's not even good at being subtle. Your move, Cleveland Jr.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, will conclude my video on why I think Cuties is not a bad film whatsoever. And I very, very much would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this topic.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there will be a lot of interesting discussion about your video in the comments.
Let me know what you guys have to say, but let's also try to keep it civil down there in the comment section. I know that's kind of a reach. It might be impossible to be civil in the comment section, but hey, I bet we can pull it off.
That's priceless.
And you know something? I haven't even said everything that I want to say about this film. There's still so much more I'd like to dissect and discuss. So I might actually do a live chat / discussion with you guys if this video is successful enough, so I can kind of get everything off my chest about Cuties and we can move on from there.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to seeing you being eaten alive if that happens.
And if I got a lot of new haters or people unsubscribing from the channel, I understand. I don't want you to leave, but hey, I can understand why you felt that way.
Now that was a nightmare to get through. Holy fucking Christ. I have never, in all my years with all the reviews of movies or TV shows or video games I've seen, ever seen a review of a piece of media this fucking tone deaf. This is the kind of review that you make when you're asking to be blasted to oblivion. How in the almighty do you even begin to make a review this repulsive? I wasn't expecting it to be this bad, even going by the title, but it managed to exceed every single one of my expectations in how absolutely wrong it is. How desperate do you have to be in order to defend a movie that blatantly kids, claims that the hate that it's getting is undeserved, and actually describing it as a work of art? This is not art. It's fucking disgusting. Honestly, the description of the video alone should have been enough of a red flag for what kind of disaster we were in for. This is the hardest review I had to make, but it's also one of my bests. I'm very proud of the work I put into it, and hopefully it shows. Yeah, you're very fucking proud of the fact that you downplayed a movie that blatantly kids. So proud apparently that you're showing some pretty oblivious behavior towards people trying to address your abject stupidity. I really cannot figure out how the hell anyone can be this oblivious. I mean, just listen to this bullshit again, with him acting like this was a movie that drastically changed his view on humanity.
We normally get a knee-jerk reaction to films that challenge us, films that are quite unique and different or go against the grain, or say something about our society that we're not willing to embrace or accept at the time. And when a film can make you question many things and have an onslaught of different opinions, emotions, and feelings, that in its essence is a work of art. Because works of art are supposed to bring things like that out of people. They're supposed to make them question what they just witnessed. Make them ponder over and over about how the film, how the work made them feel. And that's what Cuties did to me. It made me ask a lot of questions. It made me feel a variety of emotions. But at the end of the day, I can't deny that it did something very unique. Something I don't see mostly. It challenged my perspective on certain things, and I actually appreciated the experience that Cuties gave me. I may not watch it religiously. It may not be my favorite film to watch over and over again. Clearly not. But I won't forget the experience it gave me, the lessons it taught me.
No. On so many levels, no.
This is the guy who made a video explaining why he'll never watch Boku no Pico, even describing it as disgusting and horrifyingly creepy in the description. Now he's defending shit like this. But honestly, I might as well not act surprised considering he said this about the Powerpuff Girls reboot.
And then they start twerking. Yes, that was painful. It's definitely cringe level painful. It was cringeworthy. But I was sitting there saying, okay, yeah, I see what they're, what they were doing. I'm not a fan of it, but they're catering to their audience. Like, kids will find that funny. Kids will like it.
Am I denying that the film has those elements? Absolutely not. They're in there and they are extremely hard to watch. But it's not what the film is about. It's part of the film, but not the entire premise.
Nope, stop talking, go to jail.
Why? Just why? Of all the hills you would choose to die on, why this one? Because it's sending a message? Because it's doing social commentary? Because it's raising awareness on something? Because it's trying to teach us about kids in our society being and how it's bad? No. Just no. I have seen so many heads bringing up this excuse to justify the way these kids were abused, and I'm goddamn sick of it. I don't care if it was about or bad parenting, or the dangers of social media, or calling your mom on her birthday. Nothing. Fucking nothing justifies the direct of children. So, let me get this straight. To send the message that kids is wrong, Main Mona Dokoe made a movie kids. She wanted to use of children to go against it, but instead of showing how wrong it is to do that, she glorifies the scenes and even shows how empowered the girls feel as they're doing those dances. The movie is addressing the issue by literally being the issue. You can't be against by directly showing it. If the movie's message is supposed to be about how it's bad, they outright failed because they're clearly engaging in it. It's literally promoting the very thing it's supposedly against. Remember how earlier I brought up the excuse that the movie is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable, in spite of this argument being fundamentally flawed because that's exactly what the poster did when it first became public, and some people writing it off as Netflix bad advertising and misunderstanding what the movie is actually about, but then the movie actually came out and the scene that was depicted in the poster ended up being extremely gross and twisted? You're telling me that what we saw in that poster is completely okay because it represents a movie that's supposed to be against this type of repulsive imagery?
The Netflix poster also proves this phenomenon. Through its marketing, Netflix these girls, the very thing that the movie was critiquing, but in the process they also showed that it worked, because this poster got far more attention than this poster. Had it not been for Netflix's mistake, this would not have been a big movie.
F you. There were dozens of ways they could have gotten this message across without kids. A documentary, behind-the-scenes interviews, even a book would have been less offensive because it wouldn't actually engage in kids. What reality do you exist in that you think filming these kids dressing up in clothes, dancing like directing them to run their and across their and having them dance like while the camera crew pans and zooms in on their with focus shots of their is necessary to get the point across? You think the intent of this film matters when these kids are actually being abused? This isn't even something that should have to be discussed. It should not take more than 2 seconds for someone to come to the conclusion that is wrong, and we certainly shouldn't have a 1.5-hour movie children to understand that. It's not even an issue of the commentary failing because Amy and the Cuties face no consequences. This movie is literally a crime. It's actually illegal. It wants to make a statement against but it's written and shot in a way that sensationalizes and threatens to normalize it. You do not make something as gross and horrifying as that final dance number completely by accident. They absolutely knew what they were doing when they filmed and edited it the way they did. Just mere seconds of that dance scene is enough to prove how misguided and disgusting this film is. You can't even hide behind the excuse that it's a cartoon and cartoons aren't real. These are actual 11-year-old children being in the making of this film. Any social commentary or life lesson you try to teach is immediately thrown out the window the second you these kids. Why the hell did it even have to be 11-year-old girls? Why did they have to cast children? They could have just casted young adults or at least 18-year-olds for this movie. Literally, nothing about this movie would have changed and you would have gotten the exact same story with the exact same message without coming across as blatant. Over 600 children auditioned to be in this movie. So that means over 600 children were auditioning to be in a movie, and the final scene would have had them being horrifyingly and even if they only selected 5 out of those 600 kids, there's still dozens, possibly 100+ hours of footage that they went through making this film. Filming a scene for a movie takes a lot of time and a lot of reshots and retakes. So for days, weeks, maybe months on end, these children were being directed by adults to do all this gross stuff, and a lot of the filmed footage was left out of the final product. And that's not even including deleted scenes. You don't think all that unused footage is in someone's possession? Someone is unironically holding on to God knows how much of that footage of kids being and they're doing God knows what with it. This movie should literally not exist for the simple fact that children are getting and don't make the excuse that there's no sex scenes or it doesn't show any direct nudity so it doesn't count. Do you really think that actually makes a difference? The kids are still being the actions they take, the direction of their performances, the stuff they were instructed to do as the camera crew filmed them, all of it is literally breaking US law. The camera focusing on their during the dance scenes, the style of their dances calling attention to their twerking, which is literally described as a dance style. Suggestive poses, bedroom eyes, wearing inappropriate clothes for their age while doing all that gross stuff. This is all in complete violation of multiple laws set by the DOS test of 1986. They even got indicted by the state of Texas officially. And when the state of Texas has better morals than you are seriously There was literally zero reason to cast 11-year-old girls to do all of this grotesque stuff. They actual children to do all of this stuff. That is sickening. Please tell me why any of that is okay. Why was this even allowed to happen? Because it's telling us how is bad or how our society is trying to normalize it? This movie is what's trying to normalize it. The adults who made this movie are simply They have straight up ruined these children's careers, their innocence, and abused them. Anyone who uses the excuse that it's sending a message that's against this stuff so it's okay is not thinking about the horrifying implications that occurred in the making of this garbage fire. And I can already tell there's a bunch of people who are gonna say, but it happens in real life. You just don't want to face reality. No fucking shit, this has happened in real life, and it's repulsive then too. What argument are you even making for the movie by saying that? That doesn't make it okay for this movie to do the exact same thing just because it has a backwards-ass message attached to it. And the people who bring up dance moms or toddlers and tiaras or TikTok as a means to defend what this movie is saying, that excuse doesn't work either. People have called out these shows many times in the past before. So don't say we don't care that kids are getting exploited because we have shown that we care. All I can really say to that is thank God neither of those shows are making any more episodes. The problem isn't that it's sending a message about the problem is that it's literally children in doing so. They explored the issue by actually having the kids perform all of these stunts for the camera in the most upfront and visually repulsive way they could have done it. And it's all made even worse by how it's live action because actual occurred in the making of this movie. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but even anime hentai and Big Mouth aren't this repulsive because they didn't actual living children to make them. And just the people defending this movie for putting me in a position to even have to say that. They didn't even make an attempt to hide this trash. It's out in the open for everyone to see. How are you supposed to make the argument that we're just overreacting to it when the is staring you right in the face? The excuse that it's sending a message against this stuff doesn't work when you're putting these children through actual trauma. How do you think they're gonna feel when they get older and they realize they were by this and her merry band of perverted cameramen? These are underage children who don't know any better, not adult actors who can actually give consent. I don't care what excuse you come up with. This is something that is, by definition, indefensible. How do you actually defend something like this? How the do you justify the grotesque content in this movie and the horrible crimes that were done to these kids? You are actually a monster if you try to justify this movie's existence or people's enjoyment of it in any way.
The thing about Cuties is it's not an unrealistic film. Like, yes, it shows children in a sexual way, but
nothing, you stupid who needs to get pushed into a volcano and burn in boiling lava. The things that were done in the making of this movie are completely inexcusable. If you enjoy a movie about 11-year-old girls while dressed like this, that also happens to be rated TVMA, there is something wrong with you. Like there is actually something wrong with you. And Netflix is an evil, grotesque corporation that needs to be shut down and put out of business for defending this monstrosity. And before you try to rebuttal this by saying cancel culture is wrong, oh, so it's cancel culture to want to shut down a corporation that blatantly supported, defended, and endorsed just the idea that Netflix would allow this on their platform at all, let alone actually defend and support it in light of the backlash, is fucking evil. It's literally fucking evil. You can't just excuse them by simply saying, oh, it's wrong to condone Netflix because of this one movie, or they just made a mistake. Hello, you stupid fucking idiots? The movie in question is blatant actual that threatens to normalize underage and the mistake that was made here was defending, supporting, and endorsing That is literally the one mistake that you are never supposed to make. They allowed it to be transmitted worldwide and are still doing it after everyone and their grandmother explained the problem. And when confronted about their decision to defend blatant their response was basically, duh, I don't know. It doesn't matter how you slice it. By not taking the time to say no, they actively said, yes, we do support What are you gonna do about it? This is a company with absolutely zero moral compass. They are genuinely bad and immoral people for allowing this. The fact that multiple executives from that place watched this and not a single one of them found anything wrong with it is revolting. And any further support for them after pulling this stunt is wrong. I don't give a shit what other movies or shows they have on their servers. They are vile, repugnant, and completely heinous. Anyone who says they just made a mistake, or it's just one movie, is downplaying the very serious fact that they endorsed and defended I don't want to hear shit from anyone about feeling uncomfortable with wanting Netflix shut down, or wanting people to cancel their subscriptions after this mess. Whatever hidden gems of movies, shows, or cartoons are present on their servers is not more important than the fact that Netflix is actively defending and giving a platform to a movie that blatantly kids. Netflix is something that absolutely should be boycotted and shut down because what they did here was 100% unethical. They have repeatedly supported and defended this movie with no regard for what was done to the kids, while getting rid of far less offensive content from their servers, canceling Dark Crystal despite that it was viewed and praised by a lot of people, and also pulling the bullshit "at least I'm not racist" card. They are fully aware of what they're doing because they changed the description of the movie to make it look like an anti-conservative story after the previous one was collectively called out for promoting underage twerking. And if that wasn't enough to convince you, take a look at this. They recently increased the amount of money that you have to pay to watch their shit, regardless if you're using standard or premium. Yeah, I don't see anything suspicious about this at all. Increasing the amount of money you have to give them after they lost billions of dollars and millions of subscriptions immediately after their decision to take a stance on a movie that promoted fuck them. If you really want to watch a certain movie or certain series that's on Netflix, then use a website to watch it instead of giving your money to a company that's promoting and trying to legalize. And I can already tell there are some people who are gonna respond to this with, "Now you're promoting pirating? That's the worst thing ever. Worse than endangering children, apparently." If that's the route you want to take, then yes, I am promoting pirating, because the alternative in this case is supporting a company that endorses. It's not okay to keep supporting them because of 2 or 3 exclusives you personally like. And hell, we don't actually need Netflix anymore. There's all sorts of alternatives to them that cost less money that creators can promote their content on as opposed to Netflix. Hulu, Apple TV, HBO Max, hell, even Disney Plus is a better alternative at this point. Anything but Netflix. The CEO himself is literally saying that the movie is uniquely misunderstood, which is blatantly wrong in every possible way. They were given dozens of chances to redeem themselves by simply coming out and admitting that promoting the film was a mistake, have it removed from their platform, and apologize for endorsing it, and they blew every single one of them. These are irredeemable actions and they deserve to lose all of their business for the simple fact that they endorsed. And if that makes you feel uncomfortable, that's a problem with you. Seriously, what exactly about wanting Netflix shut down after they defended and endorsed is supposed to make you feel uncomfortable? I'm not just gonna consume a product at the expense of the actual illegal action that was taken against these kids. And neither should anybody else. If you don't feel uncomfortable with your Netflix subscription, even in the slightest, after they allowed this atrocity to be transmitted worldwide, and proceeded to defend and support it on top of claiming it was simply misunderstood, I'm sorry, but you have fucking awful priorities. And if you respond to any of this by saying, "Oh, it's just a movie, it's not hurting anybody because it's a work of fiction that isn't real," then you really are completely ignorant of the situation. Aside from that just being a shitty excuse for dismissing criticism in general, saying that about this movie in particular is downplaying the actual real-life illegal activity that was committed in order to make it. They are underage children who were actually to make this movie. The camera crew actively filmed them dancing while zooming and focusing on their made Mona Dokue directed them to do all of that horrifying stuff, and then made it into a film that was transmitted to countries across the globe. It doesn't matter if it's just a movie, and it doesn't matter if you were trying to teach people to be a better parent, or that our society needs to stop kids. If you filmed 11-year-old girls dressed like while dancing like running their area, you filmed 11-year-old girls dressed like dancing like running their area. This is blatant and I'm fucking disgusted that there are actual human beings on Twitter or YouTube or anywhere on this godforsaken planet who are actually defending it, justifying its existence, or seeing nothing wrong with drawing enjoyment from it. And I'm also disgusted that there are people trying to make the hate for this movie look like right-wing propaganda. I am dead fucking serious. There are actually people out there whose first reaction to this disgusting garbage was to defend it based on the political beliefs of the people criticizing it. Saying that it's QAnon nonsense, that its negative reception is part of a right-wing campaign, that they're attacking people's freedom of speech by silencing anyone who defends this movie. I really thought I've seen it all when it comes to people defending and enjoying this movie. But this is completely next level. This isn't taking the cake. This is taking the entire bakery and burning the factory to the ground. Do you not see that this just paints a really bad image for your own party, saying that it's right-wing and Quarren propaganda to be against child exploitation? It's bad enough that there are people saying that the hate for this movie is just a bandwagon and anyone going after it is just seeking views and attention. We do not need political bullshit on top of that stupidity. Saying that the hate surrounding this movie is a result of Republican propaganda doesn't make you smart. It just makes you very, very distasteful. Even the way Netflix changed the original description to make it look like it was going to be about Amy rebelling against her conservative family feels very wrong. Yeah, the conservatives are portrayed as the antagonists for actually disciplining the 11-year-old girl for stealing from her family and presenting herself as eye candy for child predators. And saying that out loud just makes me really realize how fucking repulsive the people defending this movie actually are. Also, don't even think about using the excuse that it won an award from Sundance and got positive reviews from critics on Rotten Tomato. That's a pretty shitty way to defend this film because, 1, just because a movie won a meaningless award from a shitty film festival run by Hollywood snobs doesn't mean the award is worth anything. There's a reason why people still talk about how the Oscars are shit. You're just saying that because this film won an award from idiots who don't know how to appropriately acknowledge significant films, that it must be good by default and we should like it, despite that the film in question is literally children. By that same logic, Boss Baby is supposed to be a great animated movie because it was nominated for Best Animated Feature while the Lego Movie got screwed over. Or that Ordinary People is supposed to be better than The Empire Strikes Back, which wasn't even fucking nominated that year. And 2, all these critics giving positive reviews on Rotten Tomato are the kind of people we've been discussing throughout this video. Brain-dead idiots who don't know the difference between coming of age and Several of these critics are the same people who tried to make 2019's Joker look like a terrible movie that encourages people to be violent serial killers, which still makes about as much sense as saying video games turn teenagers into school shooters. So Joker is supposed to be bad because it's just gritty violence, but Cuties is supposed to be good because it's a coming-of-age story about how children is bad. If you have to defend this movie by saying it won an award or these people gave it good reviews, you're just presenting yourself as someone who reaches for straws to justify grotesque content. Next, you're gonna tell me there are people making a big deal out of it because it was made by a black woman. Oh my lord, they're actually doing that.
What the f*** is wrong with you guys? What the f*** is wrong with you, my nigga? Like, are you sniffing shit? Are you high? Are you on fucking crack? Are you on meth? Are you taking those motherfucking mushrooms? Like, what the f*** is wrong with you? What's 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 wrong with you? Fucking shit, what's wrong with you?
Now you're saying this movie is supposed to be special because it was directed by a black woman with some Muslim heritage. This argument is so goddamn insane that I refuse to believe that it's actually real. Right now, I am fully convinced, even as I'm recording this, that I've been thrown into an alternate reality where is slowly being normalized, because no other reality could possibly allow this bullshit to slide. Anyone who makes a big deal out of this movie just because it was directed by a black woman with Senegal heritage is a lunatic. An actual lunatic. How does that make anything about this movie okay? Just because she's a black woman you think it's okay for her to children? That's your takeaway from the making of this film? Because I'm pretty goddamn sure if she wasn't a black woman, this story would have a very different ending. Yeah, when I said that earlier, I pretty much meant it. From what I've seen, the only reason Maimona Dokwe hasn't been arrested and convicted of child abuse yet is because she's a black woman. I know that sounds harsh on paper, but considering all the grotesque and inexcusable content featured in this movie, that's the only explainable conclusion I can come to for why no one has been arrested yet. I very much guarantee you that if a white man made this instead of a black woman, he would have been thrown in jail the second this movie came out. And I don't want to hear any shit from anyone about how I'm being racist for making this assumption. This person could have been Hispanic, Indian, Asian, homosexual, transgender, or an alien for all I care. None of it would change the fact that she made a movie. The fact that this movie even exists in the first place should be enough to make anyone vomit and lose all of their faith in humanity. Every adult that participated in the making of this horrifying nightmare and allowed it to be transmitted worldwide needs to be repeatedly punched in the face until their teeth fall out and locked up behind bars. And all the people supporting, defending, enjoying this inhumane trash on any level for any reason needs to be put on a watch list and lose the right to have children. And if they already have children, they are to be taken out of their custody. What about the innocent viewers who just want to watch a movie and end up liking and enjoying it for whatever reason, you ask? What reason is there to actually like or enjoy this flesh-crawling movie? It's completely vile. There's nothing innocent about it. There's absolutely nothing redeemable about it. It's fucking This should not be a difficult fact for people to grasp. If you like or enjoy this movie, you are liking or enjoying Anyone who likes this movie or defends it or defends other people's right to like or enjoy it, you are either an actual a enabler, or just completely brain dead and fucking stupid. A normal human being does not say the words, if you like this blatant that's fine, I won't judge you unironically. And if you want to say there are people who are simply unaware of the controversy, that's bullshit. There is no way that anyone familiar with this movie's existence isn't aware of the controversy surrounding it. This was literally all over the place on every single website known to man. People were talking about this movie everywhere, including people who bit the bullet and took one for the team so other people wouldn't have to watch it. Millions of warnings from every possible corner that this movie is threatening to normalize. And even if by some really small sliver of a chance that you didn't hear about the controversy and are going into this movie 100% blind, the content in the movie is completely irrefutable. You're gonna see all this sick stuff with no warning, and if you have even the tiniest shred of human decency, your immediate reaction is to press the stop button, cancel your Netflix subscription, and call the cops.
Call the cops!
Because I promise you that the only people seeking out this movie deliberately, unless their IQ is negative infinity, are actual and planning a to it. Don't believe me? Here's proof.
Hi, cuties. Guess what I just watched? Now, it's a solid film. It's a good movie. Definitely better than most movies. This film does try to make you by 11-year-olds, and I'll say it's not bad at it. It's not a total failure in that regard, at least for me. If you are concerned about people treating this as there are probably thousands of people to this film as we speak. I'm going to spoil the whole movie, by the way. So if you want to watch the movie, just watch the movie. You should watch it. It's good. Children are little girls are and they want to express that. They're pretty hot. And you can say whatever you want about me. It's not my fault. I didn't make them do that. They did that. That's the point. That's the whole point of the movie, is that you're supposed to be sitting there thinking, look at the blonde one. You're supposed to be sitting there holding these two thoughts in your head, and one that these are kids, and the other that they're hot. I think it's a good thing to put that out there. Artistically, I think it's a good thing. It's a great title because we already children. When we tell a child that they're cute, we are telling them that they're attractive. And attractiveness is only one thing. It's attractiveness leads to and it's all like connected. Like you have sex, and then a cute baby comes out, and then the cute baby grows up to become a cute adult, and then the cute adult has sex. So we're already constantly telling little girls, especially little girls, how pretty and how cute they are. And this film kind of asks you, well, taking that to its logical extreme, here's what it is. It's like the ultimate in cuteness.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is the sick individual that you represented and enabled by making these disgusting, repulsive, vile, egregious, deplorable, sickening, god-awful tweets and drawing any sort of enjoyment from this movie. Oh, you can put away the cuffs, officer. She's children to send the message that it's wrong to children. That makes about as much sense as filming yourself burglaring your neighbor's house to tell people that burglary is illegal. You want to say this film isn't grotesque and the hate for it is undeserved? Be my guest. Just know that you're going against the 2+ million people who rightfully downvoted that trailer. Defending this movie, or its fans in any way, is supporting and you can't convince me otherwise. I don't give a who you are or what reputation you have. This is something that all people, regardless of what they believe, are supposed to look at and say no. If you really want to make a movie about the dangers of internet culture having a bad influence on children, and teach parents to pay better attention to their kids, this is the last way you want to do it. Because the only thing I learned from this movie is that society has finally reached the absolute bottom of the barrel. This creature, I'm not even gonna refer to her as a woman at this point, I'm just gonna call her a creature, did not care to properly portray the subject matter and just wanted to be shocking and provocative, while abusing these children in the process. It completely fails at being a commentary because it's gross just for the sake of being gross, and she needs to fucking apologize for what she did to these kids. This sorry excuse for a movie goes against absolutely everything that is permissible, and I seriously hope that something horrible and awful happens to everyone who had anything to do with it. This is a movie made specifically for predators, and these people have no place in our society. And I should know. I've dealt with them. They are complete monsters. They manipulate people, they abuse them, they take advantage of them for their own personal pleasure, and once they get everything they want from you and they're done exploiting you, they throw you away. They drive people to depression, self-harm, and thoughts of suicide. They have thoroughly hurt people that I care for, and have left them scarred in ways that I wouldn't even wish on my worst enemy. They are evil, nasty, deplorable, foul, completely unlikable people. And I'm absolutely fucking appalled that our species allowed this shit that's meant to cater to them. This is the kind of movie that these freaks would watch in secret when no one is looking. And they don't deserve that luxury. They deserve to be removed from the public and locked away for life.
Do you know your rights?
Rights? Does anybody know their rights? You see, I've learned something today. Our forefathers came to this country because they believed in an idea called freedom. They wanted to live in a place where a group couldn't be prosecuted for their beliefs, where a person can live the way he chooses to live. You see us as being perverted because we're different from you. People are afraid of us because they don't understand. And sometimes it's easier to persecute than to understand.
Dude, you with children.
We are human. Most of us didn't even choose to be attracted to young boys. We were born that way. We can't help the way we are, and if you all can't understand that, well, then I guess you'll just have to put us away.
Dude, you with children. Yeah, you know, we believe in equality for everybody and tolerance and all that gay stuff, but dude, you. Seriously.
There is absolutely nothing acceptable about any of this. This movie, the people defending it, the people drawing enjoyment from it, and the people defending Netflix in light of all of this bullshit. This is an unholy abomination that never should have been created, and everybody standing by it should be ashamed of themselves. Whether it's because you think the hate for it is right-wing propaganda, that you think it's somehow comparable to Good Boys, that you think it's raising awareness by kids, that you think children is necessary to send its message, that you think people can't get angry at this movie's existence and judge it unless they indulge it, that you think abusing children is necessary to tell its story, or that you just want to use the controversy to make fun of people who actually give a shit that children were And frankly, that last one is just a really shitty thing to do. Like, you actually think this is funny? Because it's not funny. Don't make the excuse that it's just a joke and that I'm taking it too seriously, because nothing about this situation is something to joke about. Nothing about this situation is funny. Is not funny. Children getting is not funny. And lying about someone enjoying is definitely not funny. I'll admit I'm not the nicest person in the world, but I'm trying to raise awareness on a movie that's threatening to normalize one where children were actually abused in order for it to be created, and Netflix's horrible decision to stand by it and cover up their business practices in their wake of standing by it. You just wanted to make fun of me. And if you even think about reporting this video for cyberbullying, a video trying to raise awareness on the crimes committed by this movie, this creature who abused children, and her enablers, one that's at least taking a roll at the dice to try and raise money for a child protection charity, all I can say is, you people are awful. Like, you are truly loathsome shitheads. And as I wrap this up, I want to take a moment to say something. Tony Watley II, I know you're watching. Or at least, I hope you are. I know I've said a lot of harsh things about you throughout this video. And, yeah, of course I was going to. You deliberately downplayed a movie that blatantly children and saw nothing wrong with that. And out of all the people that I thought I would see actually defending this trash, I really thought that you would be one of the last people to stoop to that low. I really expected better from you, but I guess I was just a fool for believing in that. And in spite of all of that, I still want to believe that even after everything I've said, and after everything that you've said, that there's still some sense of dignity in you. I really hope that you're just going through a phase right now. And when that phase ends, you'll look back on this situation and this video defending this movie and realize that this was a mistake. And if that happens a month from now, or a year from now, or a couple of years from now, then that's good. It means that you understand that you fucked up, and you want to try and make an effort to learn from this and change for the better. But for the here and now, I just cannot in any good faith respect you or any of the people who are still sticking by you after you made this god-awful review. You are literally a fucking creep for believing that anything about this movie is okay. I'm pretty sure you're not a but whatever mindset led you to defend this movie, especially the way that you did, I just cannot continue to support you with this line of thinking. And to be honest, none of your current subscribers should either. If you're watching this video and you're still sub to him, I implore you to unsub from Black Critic Guy. You can scream cancel culture all you want, but the simple fact is that there are lines that should never be crossed. And defending this movie, or Netflix after their decision to defend it, or the adults who made it, or any of its fans is near the top of that list. And on that note, let's do something about these other people defending this movie or any of its fans. Report them. Remove them in any way that you can. Because the actions they took in light of this movie are legitimately disgusting. These are sick people with very low moral standards who have, by definition of these tweets and comments, defended and enabled. These are people who don't deserve to have a voice on Twitter or any platform on the internet, because they believe that their personal feelings are more important than the safety and well-being of children. Links will be in the description, and I hope that I never have to get this serious ever again.